Yeah, it's all messed up. And Gary Hootenholla here, and welcome to another episode of the NYBS radio show right here from the great state of New York. We are finally back after a very long hiatus, and I got my boys with me, William, the hunterman, and Mike EC Woodpatrick. So basically what we're going to do right now is just kind of catch up on what we've been up to all this time, because we've been very busy. Just with life gets in the way with a lot of stuff, based in going out in the woods and doing those kind of things, but also, life takes precedence over just going out and Bigfooting or Sasquatching or whatever you would like to call it. So we're going to check in with everybody and see what they've been up to. And then we're going to talk about some things, on the social webs. We're seeing a lot of things posted that, are good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to kind of discuss a little bit more about that stuff. But let's check in with William, the hunterman. What's going on, Will? Will, you got to unmute your mic. Sorry, you got to unmute.
I thought it was just me.
No,
you're still muted.
There's a brand new setup. You're still muted, Will.
I love this.
How's that now?
There you go.
Sounds good.
There we go. Go. All right.
Okay,
we're gonna get
so
the glitches out of this. Like I said, StreamYard. Go ahead.
Everything is so new today. Everything is good. I've been basically, dealing with life itself, but I spent a lot of time in the field, doing a lot of my own outdoor activities like hunting, fishing, trapping, mainly testing a lot of gear too, winter gear and everything else. And with this old big storm that we normally have, I've been seeing a lot of changes in the animal patterns and behavior. So I would like to share some of that later on down the road with you guys.
All right.
Sounds like busy time.
What about you, Mike?
All right, Mike, what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, hey guys. Well, welcome back. Been doing a lot of stuff with the BFRO here in New Jersey. We keep getting some new reports in of potential road crossing sightings in South Jersey. People tend to think that in New Jersey we have a Bigfoot, but reports are coming in. Some have been new, some have been older from years past, where the experiencer decide to come forward and talk about what they observed, and then testing out some new thermal night vision. Been looking one now for about 6-7 months, and I narrowed it down to a PARD 480 night vision thermal. And I gotta tell you, this thing is pretty impressive. It's clear. It's got a 1,200 meter viewable field laser rangefinder. So I'm still breaking it in, and I can't wait to get out there in the field and try it. And gonna do a shameless plug here for the BFRO. We have our South Jersey 2026 expedition. one of the co-organizers, and our organizer is Jacob Corbell. So for those interested in potentially coming to New Jersey and meeting me and having an expedition experience with us, just go to the BFRO website and look up Expeditions New Jersey, and you'll see the Southern Expedition. I'll send it back to you, Gary.
Nice.
Very cool. Yeah, and I'm excited about all that. And I think I may come down to that Cryptid Expo down in New Jersey in June, right? I think that is.
Yep. Awesome. It'd be great to see you.
Yeah. So I plan on. Yeah. So I plan on. Yeah, I'm definitely plan on trying to get down there. And because I think Kenny's also going to that too.
Yes.
So he's a speaker there. So I always got to represent, support our team members any way I can. Now that I'm not as busy, I'm still busy, but not as busy.
I'll buy you a light beer.
Basically, what I've been up to is, I've finished up school. Yeah, I finished up school. So I finally got through the first part of it. Now I'm an ecologist. Working more toward now fine tuning what I'm going to be doing. So I go back to school in the fall, but for now, I'm going to enjoy the woods, utilize a lot of the ecology background that I have into the Bigfoot phenomena, and really take the science to it. It's so important to have stuff that goes along with it. So I've been busy with that. I am back in the field. Been getting back out a little bit here and there, from the end of July all the way to the end of November. I have, all different, took a Footer Nation, sorry about this lag stuff. I don't know, this computer shit. But anyway, so it's been busy though. So I've been busy, but we're getting back to it. That's the keys that so there's that. But I'm excited for all the things to come. This coming season.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'm anxious to hear you talk about what you've learned in your college classes on the biology side.
There's a lot to it. So it's got a little bit of a lag problem. What on the interwebs here, we're seeing a lot of things being posted on all these pages.
Mm-hmm.
They're claiming that there's Sasquatch prints, or they're claiming that these are upside down on that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've seen a lot of that.
We'll start with Will.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of posts. I think there's more sightings now this past year than there was in the previous year before. And I've been looking at a lot of these tracks that people have posted. Sad to say, there's a lot of misinformation on some of them, because when you look at some of these tracks, like one lady, she posted a track, but each track was only a few inches apart, and they were in a straight, complete line. In reality, there is no way a bipedal animal of any size, especially anything over 100 pounds, is going to be on an even straight line. That line was just too perfect. Second of all, is that when the person put their foot down on the snow, if you look at the track, it seemed like it was aged. It was a while back, and so it actually looked bigger than it appeared. So my recommendation for that person was to measure the inside of the track, from the tip of the toe to the heel, from the inside, because the upper surface of the snow has already expanded because of the temperature changes throughout the weeks as it gone by. So the reality is that there's no animal that's going to walk an even gait. Every animal, every species, every human has a separate gait. And sometimes some are left-handed, right-handed, so they tend to, you know, pivot a little bit to the left or to the right. But also the terrain has a lot to do with it. Sometimes is it in a hill area? Is it a flat area? Is it, you know, and then when you're going uphill, the front part of that track should be deeper than the rear. But when something looks too even like that, Gary, I honestly think it's just man-made. It's sad to say, but I have to debunk that one.
Yeah, agreed. Only too, when you look at these tracks, you know, they're not really showing length and width, you know, and the gait, you know, and especially if there's two prints side by side, you know, try to get the full width of each print, the distance between those two prints, so you have an in between section, and then try to get an overall length between end to end of each footprint. And then when you go back, try to get that stride. So between each track mark, get that stride. We know, and like you said, when the snow starts melting, the sun comes out, it's going to melt those corners. So you would have perfectly 90-degree angle prints. They're now going to melt and they're going to move back. So it's going to appear wider and longer. So when we take consideration of these tracks, we really should still do our due diligence and measure everything we can, take multiple prints from different angles, and ensure we log all that information.
Exactly, I agree.
Another thing we're seeing too is these people posting up the rabbit, you know, when they have the individual rabbit prints and they're like, you know, 4 or 5 feet apart. I'm seeing a lot more of those posts, and people are questioning that, like, oh, that's not a rabbit. You know, but when you look at these pictures from the top down, you can actually see the inlay of the print of its rabbit's paw and the way it's sitting and how it's just jumping from a great distance to get to that next destination. So that jump could be anywhere from a foot to 4 feet, depending on, again, the rabbit. I think people are getting confused.
Exactly. As in the case of the rabbit, also, when a rabbit jumps, his feet are always tight in. The front feet are together and the rear stay together tight. So when he hops, his whole body hits the ground. So he'll leave an indentation that actually looks to be anywhere from 13, 14 inches, 12 inches, depending on the size of the rabbit, whether it's a juvenile or an adult. Same scenario with the bears. You know, everybody don't realize. Everybody says, "Oh, but the bears are hibernating." Not necessarily. Bears come out. They got to go out and eat and urinate and do everything. Sometimes they'll travel, check somebody's garbage, and then go back into the den. They double step, and a lot of mistaken identity on double stepping. And Gary has spoken about that once before. That also is a big contributor to people thinking it's a Bigfoot track. I mean, don't get me wrong, and we all wish we can find and get an definitive track. But there's so much detail that we have to look at in every angle. Like you stated, Mike, you know, the terrain has a lot to do with it. What's around it? They had to be brushed. Did they walk into a brush pile? How many brush branches did it break? Was it, you know, when you look at the gait analysis on any kind of track, it tells a story. The same way, like when I'm tracking the wildlife and finding coyote kills, I can see a crime scene and determine exactly how many coyotes were there and where this crime scene actually took place because of the way the way the tracks are. You know, you can see the fox and track just trot along through the whole woods with one thing, but when there is a kill, there's a sloppy track because everybody's in a rush to go, you know, pick up that kill. So there's always a mess. The same thing with a scenario with somebody walking big and stuff like that. But Gary, talk about that bears with the double step, and we've mentioned that before.
I think Gary's got a little lag.
You got that, Gary? Yeah, so that's that happens every now and
I just
then.
got a lag in here real quick.
Okay, you back?
Keep going.
All right. So if you can hear me, Gary, talk about them double steps on the bear track, and a lot of people don't realize that not all bears den the whole entire season.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of like. Well, while Gary's waiting, just want to say a quick shout out there to our commenters. Angela, welcome. Maya Smith, sorry for your loss. And hi, Gary, Espinoza, and everybody else that's joined in our conversation. And keep the comments coming. Let's ask some questions. But Gary, hopefully you can hear me. You can turn over to you and talk about the bear track.
He's still out.
Yeah, I think he's still out.
All right. Here's another interesting talk about when it comes to tracks. A lot of times people don't understand too, though, the size of something that makes a track also has a difference in depth. When you take an 80, 90-pound person and they step on a track, there's only going to be a certain amount of depth. It can be anywhere from 2 or 3 inches or whatever it may be. So when we find a Bigfoot track and then the person steps next to that track and you weigh yourself and you see how measure your track, the depth, and then look into that track that you found of the Bigfoot track and give a determination of how many inches, because for every certain amount of inches, a certain amount of pounds that the snow can bear and hold. So if you're sinking in 3 inches and that track is only 1.5 inches, it's kind of like wondering why isn't it deeper than my own personal track. So every animal, every species have different weight variations. So we have to not only measure the track in width, size, length, and everything in gait and spread of each stride, but we need to also measure in depth of it, because each depth for every inch accumulates a certain amount of pounds per inch.
Yeah, and we hear, from stories and from knowledgeable, educated, researchers like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, when you have those insteps and they press down, okay, that's all the body weight from that being pushing and compressing everything down. And, we hear that the deeper the impression, the taller and heavier the being could be. So it's a good valid point. We always look for those deep impressions because they're good to cast, because it's going to be a nice thick cast and it's not a thin cast where it can easier break. And now you have that thick cast. Now you can actually see and say, okay, I got a print that's 16 inches long, 10 inches wide, and it's 4 inches in the ground. That would be a very big boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The key to that.
Hey, Gary, you back.
You back, Gary?
Yeah. Yeah, you're just not going to see me. No, the key to all that is, like you say, when we're talking about the bear double step in itself.
Yeah.
I would hate. I don't want to put a percentage, but a high percentage of these tracks are literally bear double steps. Like Mike just brought up, the weight of a creature, the weight of a species and a specimen, like a black bear, we'll say, because they go over 1,000 pounds. They're going to make deep imprints, and when they do that double step and they drag that paw right back into the track itself, it literally widens it, and after erosion and those kind of things and weathering, you end up getting these tracks that look like possible Sasquatch tracks, when in reality it's not. It's a bear. And we just see this time and time again. And just in my opinion, as coming from, I come from an ecology background, I come from science, I'm in the woods studying and researching different things, is that as researchers and investigators in this phenomena, we're already mocked at just to begin with, right? So what we're doing is already like, oh, well, we're in pseudoscience and wasting our time and money, But in the reality is that, we're trying to bring a plausible explanation to what may be going on. But then when we see all these, bear tracks being posted as Bigfoot tracks or anything, I sent Will rabbit tracks one day. Remember the rabbit tracks I sent you? Like, this looks like a rabbit, and people trying to say that was a Bigfoot track. All it does is take the credibility of what we do and just flush it down the toilet. Because it's like, and then this is when you start getting into those, social media circles. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion.
It also helps because when you log this information in a specific area and you find, say, tracks again 2 miles away, and they're similar, where you can compare the size, the depth, the gait, that species could have traveled those 2 miles to another area, maybe for sustainable food, shelter, hiding from the elements. So it's important that we log this information correctly so you can track these species and find a migration path. We hear that these things travel, in the winter, they go south. So from Maine, they're heading south. In the summertime, they're coming back up. So if we can track these species by this data, it's just another positive that we'll have for scientific data that can be verified.
I totally agree. We need to compare that data, and from every year, even in the same general area, you find another set of tracks. We can look back and compare it, as you said, and make a determination exactly what's going on. But sometimes we say some animals migrate. I can totally agree that there's a lot of deer in the area that I study. They're there, and all of a sudden, within January or so, they move out of the browsing area because the foliage has died and changed. So they move to different areas to feed at different type of plants that are available during that time of the month. Yep. So there could be also a two-sided theory on this too, because some can say Bigfoot could migrate long distances, but I honestly think that something with that size and that body structure and everything, they would probably be more like how would you say this word? They would look for the easy route. They would look for where there's a food source close by that they don't have to travel as much. Because remember one thing, no matter what animals migrate and travel, they lose a lot of body weight during these extreme cold conditions. So to minimize the loss of body weight and not able to sustain yourself is life-threatening to any species of wildlife. So we also have to look at what animals are suburban compared to that in the mountain range. Mountain, like for instance, I use deer as an example. Mountain deer, they stay up in the mountains. They change their locations. They migrate more. Their span could go up to 28 miles. But yet we got a lot of deer in the local farmlands and the towns and the range. Why? Because people plant stuff on their backyards. There's old cornfields with still standing corn. There's a lot to browse on because of the dense foliage in certain lowland areas. The same way I would think that a Sasquatch can possibly be an opportunistic, that he can just literally look for an easy meal, stating garbage cans, dumpsters, anything local. And there's been a lot of reports of people saying they were working in McDonald's, they saw a Bigfoot in a dumpster. So why was he in a dumpster and not migrating out of his general area? But like you said, even with whitetail, there are many subspecies of whitetails. So in the Sasquatch thing, which we yet to really understand, is there a difference in the subspecies between the mountain Sasquatch compared to the lowland Sasquatch in different climates and different areas and different terrains? What's your take on it, both yous?
I mean, it's going to depend on the area, what they're acclimated to. Like, we know a Bigfoot in upstate New York is going to have a different feeding habit and feeding resources versus something down in Florida, like the skunk ape. It's a different environment. I'll give you, for instance, look at right now with all this snow we got. Here in New Jersey, we've got about 12 inches. Everything is covered. And I was sitting on my couch just 2 days ago, and I watched 10 deer walk down my street because they're looking for food. Everything is completely covered. So all the plants that they were able to try to get to that are ground level are covered. So they're trying to find food and they're traveling abnormally walking down my street. I've been here for 16 years in this town. I've never seen that. This is the first time. And I'm hearing from other people in other parts of New Jersey that the deer are doing the same thing. Now they're attacking people's garbage cans because they know there's potential for food in there. So again, when we look at these species and look at the weather and the environment, we have to say, okay, what's going to sustain them and where are they going to go? Farms, livestock, and like you said, for fast food restaurants, plazas that are back up to forest wilderness areas. So they're going to try to stay covered, but yet try to attempt to get that subsistence.
Yeah, my question is always about when we talk about that, right? So we talk about what Bigfoot or Sasquatch would eat in this time of year. The problem I always run into with this for myself, and coming from this, like I may sound like a skeptic. I've seen a Bigfoot, like I had my own encounter, so that's not when people are like, well, like, no, I do, I saw one, but the problem is we need to think logically, right? So we especially now we have over like 2 feet of snow up here in New York right now, okay? And any kind of activity from animals, we're going to see clear as day. Like I have coyotes running around the woods. You can find all the coyote tracks. You can find the coyote kills, right? We know where they killed something. You can see the sign, right? So even going into people's backyards and stuff, you would see track lines going into the backyard, going through their garbage can, because I think that they do that. They'd be scavengers, right? So that they would be like any kind of apex predator. But in the same sense, it's like, where is the sign that the creature was there? Because there's never any sign, like never. We always see 1 foot track, and now people are saying, now we're back into the woo of it, right? Or people are like, oh no, it's interdimensional. It's set 1 foot down. And it's like, okay, like I can't say that you're wrong because we don't even know what a Sasquatch is. We don't. We know everybody's right and everybody's wrong, right? It's just our opinions, and our opinions really don't matter. But in the same sense, when it comes to being biological, like I'm on the biological side. But it's like, where's the scuffle? Where's the sign? And it's like, we don't see it. We don't see the trackways. People are always like, follow the trackways. Okay, great. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Follow the trackway. But there's never a trackway. I don't want to say never. We'll say like 90. We'll just put 90% of the time. There's no trackway, right? We always see a couple tracks, 1 track. Even with Dr. Meldrum, let's put, he was the track guy. But think about it. The world-renowned scientist in Bigfootology, if that's what you want to call it, right? Did he really ever follow tracks to the end of the trackway? No. I mean, there's nothing I've heard of, right? If you, I don't know, if someone's heard of it, then, tell me. I haven't heard of that because I figure if that happened, then we would hear about it, right? So
and right now, with all the snow we got in the entire Northeast from Georgia all the way to Maine, out to further Pennsylvania, Ohio, somebody is going to have a print. There's going to be something has to be out there. And then they should follow that trackway.
Right. But it's like, we don't see the trackways though. And that's always my question.
Yeah.
Because even I research up in the Adirondacks, right? And even in the Adirondacks where there's all these sightings and all this stuff, and I've had a lot of weird stuff happen that I've talked to you guys about, and we'll get into that in later shows. We just don't find the trackways. Like I casted a track before, and it was 1 track. It was a single track. And this is what, and I couldn't follow a trackway because it was in the mud. And then just disappeared, just like animals do. So this is always my question, because like bears, they don't really hibernate. They do a hibernation called topar, right? So topar hibernation is something is a half sleep thing. Like they don't, especially with climate change, animals aren't really fully hibernating like they used to, especially in New York. So with topar hibernation, it's a light sleep. They only go away for a couple weeks, and they're back out. When people are like, "Well, bears hibernate," and I'm like, "Well, why do we have all these bear prints in the snow then?" It's literally like 5 degrees up here. It's the
And I'll give you an
coldest.
example. Jacob and I were out probably about 2 months ago down in local forest down here, and we hit up this one area that is near a bridge and a campground, and on the one far side it's all mud. We happened to just go through, and Jacob looked down and we saw a flat print. It was probably about 12 inches long, but very narrow, maybe about 6 inches, 5 inches wide. And we're both looking at it, and it's perfectly flat. You can see toes. And we're looking at like, where is the other prints? And we actually walked around a 5-foot radius, and we only found one print. And we're like, there's got to be more. Where are the others? So we took a walk because it was next to the water. The water table was low. We were able to walk from near the water and look for maybe a print underneath the water.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was found. We had one print. And here's the worst part. We forgot to cast it.
Yeah. I mean, think about how many times you don't even have your casting material with you. A lot of times I don't even have it in my bag half the time, which I need to keep it in there. But
yeah,
we started doing that.
I kind of recommend everybody to, if you find a track, try to cast it if you possibly can. Make an initial report on it. Maybe contact, any of the groups that are within the state, so we can send investigators to take a look at each track. Getting back to the storm, I'm in Sullivan County, and we got approximately like almost 3 to 4 feet of snow on top of snow from the previous storms. But what I did notice on the herds of the deer was that because my area is up in the mountain and we have a lot of ferns that grow during the spring, the deer were actually digging in the ground in the snow, and they were eating all the shoots from underneath the leaves in the ground just to get a source of food. So they would actually make these scraped up areas that are huge. I mean, they literally poured my whole yard up just to eat the shoots from these the ferns that got to grow up in the spring and the roots. So, and then what I noticed that a lot of these deer do that when they scrape up the area, they'll bed down on the ground because there's no snow on it. So that area that they just poured out, I watched about 4 or 5 of them just bed down, squat there, and stay there till the next morning. And then when the snow was going, their backs were covered with snow, but the bellies were nice and warm on the ground. And then they got up in the morning and went about their business. When we think about a track, even a single track, just because it's a single track doesn't necessarily mean there is no track. It could be some that were buried in the snow, and maybe one is more visible because there was not enough snow hitting that particular area with the wind or whatever the direction of the snowfall might have been. But what I notice, a lot of people, they'll look at a video and show the track on the distance of where it was going. How about learning to backtrack? Backtrack and find out if there's a bedding area, where does the animal came from? Because a lot of times, no matter what species of animals you're searching for, when you backtrack, you find out the locations of their bedding areas, their feeding areas, because almost 80% of the time they'll return, especially if they have a bed or a nest or something like that. Kind of funny, but even black bears, people think, oh, they den, but I've seen pictures of many bears up on an eagle's nest, up in the trees, or even in between a triple split tree, and actually lay there and fall asleep for during the day while the sun is out. So they're soaking a little bit of heat, but they'll lay in the middle of that tree. So, sometimes I don't care how much knowledge that we all have in scientific studies and everything. Just sometimes when we think we got the answers, nature proves us wrong. And we have to accept that and come to terms with reality, because every year things happen. Animals change their patterns. So nature has to adapt in order to survive. So we as researchers must have to double back and check ourselves. So whatever data I will collect, I would just give it to Gary and Mike and let them analyze it and check. And then we try to go through many markings of that particular track and see if we can find a flaw. What is out of what's out of the ordinary, and how are we gonna make an actual statement of, is it or is it not? So this is the greatest thing about researching and teamwork, is because we all can share data. And like I said, with me and Gary, if I have to, whatever data we collect, we keep it within the group, because you never know in the records. Because like Mike stated, you might go there next year and see another set of tracks. We can compare it. Is it the same individual animal? Is it the same depth size? Is it the same stride? I mean, Mike's 100% right. So it's very important what he just mentioned and what Gary mentioned on collecting all this data.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about, is the data collection. So let me put up this track line and we'll talk about it. It's cruising the interwebs right now because tracks are important. Really, honestly, it's all we have in Bigfoot, right? Think about like what do we have? Eyewitness accounts, right? Or we people will be like, well, they're hallucinating, blah blah blah, or trackways, because it's harder. It's harder to just prove trackways if you have like something that really looks like a Bigfoot, right? I guess so. But that's all we had, like really, and even that is now getting debunked because they're a lot of times they're bears. So here, let me pop this picture up. So right now, this is cruising the air, this social media train, saying that this is a big possible Bigfoot in New York. Okay, so Mohawk Valley, New York, which this is kind of our stomping ground. But as always, we know people post a picture and then just add a location where this found. So probably next week this will be in Minnesota, and then it'll be all the way out in Washington State, and then it'll be all the way out in Nepal. This is how it works, right? So, but when we look at these tracksways, right, and by an untrained eye, people are like, "Wow, they look weird, right? They're huge. It has to be a Bigfoot." But then, like Will says, you got to understand tracking, and us, the three of us here understand tracking. And when you start really looking into the behavior of this animal, you can see that it's moving nice and slow, nice and gingerly through the woods, right? It's not running. It's not scared. It's just literally walking along. You see that it's actually angled a little bit. So, once again, that, we're looking at different kind of pronation and things like that. And when you kind of look at this track, like, all right, so there's a little, under pronation on this. Okay. And then when you actually look in the very first track, and this is where it baffles me, you see that there's another step inside the step. So you will see the front of the track where it looks like there's toes. Okay, I can buy that. I understand, blah, blah, blah. But then you look right in the middle of a track and boom, there is another track inside the track, which now that automatically tells me, one, that's a bear. Okay, because bears do the double step, right?
Yeah.
Now we start really looking at the track some more. And then as I call it snow glide, you can see where it's gliding all the way across the snow to the next track. And it's a slowly, and we see this in rabbits too. When rabbits are kind of doing their thing, you'll see gliding marks from their bellies going across the snow. Deer do it too, I noticed.
Yes.
They're big on the glide. They kind of just scrape their hoofs across the snow before they put it down. And then you start really examining this and you're like, wow, okay, so we have a black bear, more than likely a black bear, right? Of some sort. But
here's what puzzles me, Gary. Look at that track. See the toes?
Yeah.
Now you look at that little horseshoe of white patch of snow that looks like almost like a V underneath the toes.
Yep.
Okay, so why is that higher than the rear? Now, if you're walking forward, you're leaning forward. That if you have a pad on your foot, you would press down, front down. Yep. Why is that patch higher than the rear when if you're walking forward, there's no way that you're going to walk forward and not press down forward, leaning, and then your rear hind of your leg will lift up as you're pressing down, walking. So if you look at that track, that arch that you see there, that snow patch is too high.
Yep, and that was a telltale sign for me. But when I look at the second track, if you look down a little bit, it's not like that. So what I'm thinking, and I can only go by logic here, is from that snow may have fallen into the track itself. Because you're talking about deep snow, you're talking about this could be powdery snow, right? Even we don't know because we're just looking at a picture, right? But if I look at the tree, see how there's the heat sunken, this heat mark around the tree that's sunken in.
Yeah.
All right. So that's starting to tell me that this is old. Okay. So this snow has been sitting for a hot second.
Wow.
It's not That doesn't happen right away. Heat around
Yep.
trees, it doesn't make those nice holes like that right away.
Takes time.
Okay. It takes time, right? So now I'm looking at that and be like, okay, so this has been here for a hot minute, right? So during that hot minute, multiple things could have happened, right? We're talking about weathering. We're talking about, I don't know, the wind. Easily that snow could have caved into that little part of where the toes would go down, right? We could start thinking about that. Because again, like I say, for me, I can only go by, all right, so at one time there was that nice impression, but then again, you can clearly see this double step in the print. You can clearly see it in the middle. And now, and then honestly, and I agree with you 1,000% because hypothetically that should be down in. But then as I look at the other two up, and they're further away, but it doesn't look the same.
But what gets me, Gary, I want to ask you a question. What gets me is that it could be a blowdown. It could be a tree stump underneath the snow that can contribute to why that track might have went on an upright position because he felt something and then he made a bigger step. But the problem with this photo is not that we're going to debunk it, but the problem is that he should have took a closer photo of the track itself, go to the next one, take another photo, take a next one, and then put them side by side and check the comparison.
Yeah. But that's why they don't do that, Will. The reason they don't do that because they already know it's a bear.
Okay.
I mean, that has to be the logic, right? The logic would state that if someone really thought that was a Bigfoot, as we talk about, then you would have more to it, right? You would have more meat and potatoes.
And looking at that second stride, Gary, you snowshoe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you snowshoe, and I used to. Some of those snowshoes have that figure like contoured in center part. They're not like a straight pointed snowshoe. There are some that almost look like an hourglass.
Yeah.
So when I look at that second step, I see snowshoe mark.
Yeah.
And now, if you have a snowshoe, and if there's something underneath there, you could actually have the snowshoe tilted.
Yep.
Possible.
Yeah, and if that's and that could be possible. And then what we'll say is where the other imprint, where the double step would be, that would be the crampon of the snowshoe. Because there's definitely something that's sitting in the middle of that step that, is either a crampon of some sort, or again, because a Bigfoot wouldn't have crampons on it, and or it's a double step itself. The only thing I would say is the reason I still go bear, because that's the way that glide. You see the glide on the top of the snow.
Exactly.
That if it's the glide that gets me, because that means it's dragging either its body, its belly, or its heel as it comes, but you're 1,000% correct, because again, these almost look like snowshoes, and you're 100% correct again. As a snowshoer myself, snowshoes come in all different shapes and sizes these days, and you would get a very similar pattern from it.
Can you imagine if that
I don't know if you noticed, but even with a bear, the front paws of the bear are always wider than the rear, and the rear from the heel always thins out, almost like a V shape, similar to what I'm looking at in that track in the back. That's why when you say double step, it's a very big possibility, as I'm looking at them.
Bears have toes. That's what people don't realize. They literally have pads of their feet, and the pads of their feet. And I posted this on our Facebook page, a grizzly bear, the giant, paw print. They have toes. So when they go down like that, you're not going to see the claw marks from the bear.
Exactly, because of the hair.
Yes, you're going to see the paws. And then people think that they're toes.
That's why you got to look at it really good, because even around the sides of the bear's foot, there's always a mass of hair. And even between the toes, there's going to be a mass of hair, which actually cover the claws. So a lot of times when you see bear tracks, you don't always see claws. So that's a proven fact, what you just stated, Gary.
Yep.
One of the things that I found a little disturbing at one point was when I went to Walmart one day, and some kid bought some kind of rubber boots, and the boots looked like a Sasquatch, toes on it and everything. It was a rubber boot that looked like a Bigfoot track. And I'm like,
Yeah,
imagine this kid walking through the woods. You would make everybody go crazy.
Yeah, I mean and that's where we're at literally. Like right now, that's literally where we're at. You know, it's just like they have so much stuff out there now, you know, in the stores and everything. And then, you know, then you have people like us that are really trying to research this stuff. And it's like the constant battle, you know. We'll show one more set of tracks and then we can kind of wrap it up. But this is kind of, once again, because this winter, here's snow. But then, you know, this track was popping up. So let me remove this. Thank you for bearing with us, Footer Nation, because this whole thing is new. This is a whole new setup. I haven't used it in years. All right, so then we have tracks like this. And I'm like, they're like, oh, these are little baby Bigfoot tracks. And I'm like, what? I'm like, baby Bigfoot tracks now that we're doing. And I'm like, that's literally still bear tracks. But in the same sense, because you look at the way the pathway is, now you got to remember, could this be AI? With AI, it's easy to start making stuff like this. You know?
Right.
And typically, AI, it's going to be very clear. It's going to look like an image like, wow, this person must have had a $10,000 camera. Because what it does is those pixels, they become fine-grained.
Yep.
So it's going to look like a pristine, clearest picture you ever seen.
Got you. Because I'm looking at this, and then, you know, I started getting into debates with people like, well, it's bipedal, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So I showed them this, right? And then I'm like, well, let me show you a North American black bear track. And let's see if I can add both of them on here. There you go. So here's a North American black bear track. So when you look at this really close, and here's the toes, here's the claws, we're in the nice mud. And then I go back to our other one, and I'm like, oh, wow. There's the toes, there's the claws, same exact print. So I'm like, all right, and it's in dirt. So I'm like, well, what would you like to say about this, sir? And he goes, no, that's not a black bear. That's some kind of creature. And I'm like, okay, thank you for talking. But this is kind of where we're at with this. It's like, you know, and it's like, and then they call me a non-believer. And I'm like, okay. So, but this is like the logic we have to look at. But even look at this. So this is a different bear, right? The track isn't as big as the other ones we just looked at in the snow, right? Because they're not doing a double track. But you can see again how they're turned. Bear tracks are always kind of turned in. So they have that like goofy little, like, you know, walk that they do.
Mm-hmm.
But, and who knows where this was taken? You know, we don't know. It supposedly Florida. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the walk step.
Right? The step walk. Yeah. What do you think about it, Will? You're a tracker.
Well, it looks more man-made to me. I'm going to be very honest with you. But it could be, like you said, a bear, a smaller bear. But like we said, we have to still. Well, don't want to debunk every photo on people, but we need to take some kind of sample testing. We need to make measurements. We need to be called upon the scene of an actual finding of a track so we can investigate it. I mean, you know, I'm saying there's a lot of people that don't have the experience and the knowledge. They'll just take a picture, but there's ways of taking pictures and using a tape measure, ruler, et cetera, and covering the distance. Like Mike said, you know, follow the distance. How far did it go? Did it go 200 yards and disappear, or did it go 7 miles in or 5 miles in? I mean, I don't know if people want to really walk that far, but if you want to show something, we need some kind of data. You need to collect something, give us more information, because photos sometimes seem so blurry and so not enough evidence, because we're not there to actually sit there and say, okay, Mike and me and Gary will kneel down beside that track and actually analyze it and, you know, look at it and see what it is. I'm sure there's tracks out there. I'm sure there could be tracks from any kind of species, even cryptids, that's something maybe we don't understand about. I will never disclaim that Bigfoot does not exist, because I do believe there is something out there. And I know because I had my own experience as a kid hunting, and I saw something and couldn't really say what it was. But to this day, it haunted me, but it made me fascinated to the fact that what did I see? But as a tracker, and tracking kids that get lost and human tracking and stuff like that. You learn to develop skills that take the ordinary to the something that's not ordinary, and try to find the pieces to the puzzle. So I honestly, people need to get tape measures, people need to get cast modes, people need to take longer videos with further out where did it go, because anybody could put a track in the backyard and take a picture, but I like to know where the hell that came from, or which direction it come. Did you backtrack? Did you go forward? We want to help everybody. We want to teach everybody. We want to try to go out there and see something. Maybe somebody give Gary a call. If he's in my area, I could run out there with my truck and investigate, and then I can contact Mike and Gary and share what I discovered and share what I have, and let them review it just as well, because one opinion doesn't matter. We need opinion of 3 or 4 to get an actual conclusion of what we've seen and what we're looking at.
Agreed.
Yeah, look at that image there. You can look at the farthest point. It's like the track ends.
Yeah.
So did it actually stop, or did it go into the woods?
Yeah. Or is it the woo? It just vanished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That'll be the next conversation,
Yeah.
But all right. So Footer Nation, this is the things that are really important that we have to talk about. Because again, we take our work serious, right? We put a lot of time, effort, money. Mike was talking about thermal. Thermal imaging is expensive. You know what I mean? The amount of wireless trail cameras I have in the woods, it's expensive. And services. So what we're trying to do is not so much, I can't speak for them, but not so much prove the existence of Bigfoot, right? Because we really can't do that. Science can only do that. Even as citizen scientists, we can only do so much, right?
Right.
And I can't even really talk about this stuff at my job because, again, it's not something that the science community really, they're open to it and they laugh at me about it, but it's not something that we can really talk about. But in the same sense, we're out there doing the work and all this stuff. And it's important together as a full community that, we kind of be like, all right, well, listen, we have to put out best case scenario because only best case scenario is going to make us more credible. Right. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of going back and forth with, team members, going with professionals, other scientists, people trackers, videographers, photographers, these people that this is their profession that can then write little reports for you to give you the best plausible theory and explanation for what what you saw or what you're seeing. Then we can then put together something that's plausible. And that's where we're at still. Literally, that's still where we're at.
Yep.
Totally agree.
But we got to stop recycling the garbage. That's the issue.
Yeah, there's so much. This AI has really ruined so much of all these videos and stuff. We want to believe because we feel deep in our hearts that there's something exists out there. This is why we put the time and the research to go out there and spend time on the field to examine so much until we can find some kind of conclusive answer. But my thing is, I want all the readers and people who watch these videos, Bigfoot Society, we're all here to help you. Reach out. If those are in Jersey and even parts of upstate, get in touch with Mike and get in touch with Gary, and then we'll get in touch with each other. Whoever's the closest can go out there and investigate it, and then we can bring our findings to the team, and then we can go about it, and hopefully we can find something and some kind of evidence and stuff like that. Because this journey never ends. It's a question of is it or is it not out there? I know. Sometimes we seem a little skeptical because we're flesh and blood people, but we really, really want to make sure that what you're looking at is what you're looking at, not a big mistake and misjudgment of something that you're not too sure of.
Yep.
All right. And any last word, guys, before we get out of here? Mike, any last words?
Just, keep doing the research, keep doing the citizen science, make sure you log everything, video record, images. If you have any questions on proper technique, definitely hit me up on Facebook. I'll be glad to help you out. And just keep the boots on the ground.
Awesome.
Totally
You,
agree.
Will?
Awesome.
Any last words, Will?
Yeah, thank you for your support to this page, and I'm going to thank Mike for being on. Finally, got a chance to see one of the best out there, and Gary,
Thanks,
always
man.
top notch with all topics of the field, very knowledgeable. Thank you guys for all your support, and let's keep it squatchy, and let's do it. Let's do our homework. Let's go out there and see what we can find.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, Footer Nation, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know there was some glitches, and I finally figured it out, 25 minutes later. But we did figure it out, right? That's what it's all about
Yeah.
with new technology.
Got it done.
We got it done, so it's all good. But we'll be back in the next couple of weeks as we'll be putting together a bunch of new shows for you all, a bunch of new guest topics, theories, ideas, all new equipment ideas. What's really cool is that each one of us brings something to the table that that we're proficient in. And our goal here is just to try to best case scenario for everything that we can do. So we're excited, and we're excited for the season. And as always, friends, keep it squatchy, and we'll see you out on the trail. Deuces, everyone.
Deuces.
Deuce.